remain standing, ladies and gentlemen, as we observe the university anthem. The university anthem. In love, peace, and harmony, we shall build a tower. Hear thy clarion call. In unity we grow, committed to the saints of the learning, our hearts from vanity, standing firm in wisdom, in knowledge and in truth we honor your virtues, Unilord. You stand in strength and pride, learning, winning, building, praise, showing the way for all who yearn, making a future for the ones who follow, rising up. We must never turn. Ilari, Unilari, your touch has guided us upwards and onwards. Ilari, Unilari, our alma mater we sing. Thank you very much, everyone. Please be seated.
Welcome to the 297th inaugural lecture of University of Illinois. It is titled From Wobbling to Thriving Development, the Transformation Power of Adult Learning and Education for Sustainable Futures. Will the inaugural lecturer please stand? Our inaugural lecturer was born on the 11th of September 1957 in Osogbo, Osun State. Though an indigene of Ilawe, Ekiti State. He started his primary school education at Masifa DC Primary School, Ogbomoso, in 1964 and completed his studies at St. James's Primary School, Osogbo, in 1979. He attended St. Charles Grammar School, Osogbo, between 1970 and 1974 and the Divisional Teachers Training College, Oye Ekiti, obtaining the Teachers Grade 2 certificate from the Ministry of Education, Ondo State, in 1977. An inaugural lecturer gained admission into University of Ibadan in 1978 and obtained his B.Ed, Educational Management, stroke botany in 1982. M.Ed, Economics of Education in 1985 and PhD, Adult Education in 1988, all from the University of Ibadan. Our inaugural lecturer joined the services of the University of Maiduguri as a graduate assistant in the Department of Continuing Education and Extension Services in 1983. He rose through the ranks to become a professor of adult and non-formal education management in 1998. He transferred his service to the University of Ilorin in the Department of Adult and Primary Education in 2014. Our inaugural lecturer of today has successfully supervised several undergraduates, over 40 Master of Science degree, and 14 PhD students. He is a member of many learned and professional bodies, some of which include Nigerian National Council for Adult Education, Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, and the New York Academy of Science. He currently serves on the boards of trustees of the Nigerian National Council for Adult Education and the Kebbi Community Development Support Initiative. He has served in various capacities within and outside the university, and these include member, Governing Council, University of Maiduguri, 2009 to 2013. Dean, Faculty of Education, University of Maiduguri, 2004 to 2008. Head, Department of Continuing Education and Extension Services, 1992 to 1995. Director, Institute of Education, University of Ilorin, 2020 to 2021. Director, Center for Open and Distance Learning, University of Ilorin, 2014 to 2017. Visiting Research Fellowship at Japan Institute of Developing Economics, Tokyo, Japan, 1992 to 1993. He was also visiting professorial appointed at Bayero University, Kano, 2010 to 2011, and visiting professor at Usmanu Danfodio University, Sokoto, 2023 to 2024. I will stop there. There are so many of them. Our inaugural lecturer has over 80 publications in reputable, home-based, national and international journals, edited conference proceedings and chapters in books. He has attended various local, national and international conferences and served as external examiner and assessor to many universities across the country. He was honored as one of the 50 distinguished graduates of the Faculty of Education, University of Ibadan, during his 50th anniversary celebrations recently. He is happily married to his wife of the Department of Counselor Education, University of Ilorin, and the union is blessed with many children and grandchildren. I welcome to give his inaugural lecture Professor Ayodele Anthony Fajonyomi.
In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academics, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Management Services, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Technology and Innovation, the Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, members of the University Governing Council here present, the Provost College of Health Sciences, deans of faculties, particularly Dean of Education, heads of departments, particularly the head of adult and primary education, directors of various units, professors and other members of Senate, academic, administrative and technical staff of the university, my Lord spiritual and temporal, esteemed invited guests, University of Ilorin students, particularly students of the Department of Adult and Primary Education, gentlemen and ladies of the print and electronic media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. To God be the glory for making this 19th day of February 2026 a reality. As I reflect today, I cannot fail to remember surviving a motor accident in 2001, shortly before the announcement of my professorship in 2002. Though backdated to 1998, after 4 years of waiting and all arrears paid. And yet another incident in 2011 on traveling back to Maiduguri after completing a sabbatical leave at Bayero University, Kano. My journey with the University of Ilorin secondarily began in 1981 during a visit with my late friend Dele Ogushetire of Dabato Construction Company that built the chemistry block and several other structures. While crossing the bridge at today's dam site, I was struck by the serenity and tourism potential of the environment, and I expressed a desire to start my career here in Ilorin. As my life is in God's hand and He directs as He wills, He first led me to the University of Maiduguri, and later, after 31 years, 4 months and 20 days, brought me back, and I'm privileged to conclude my academic career at this institution. This was made possible under the Vice Chancellorship of Professor Abdulganiyu Ambali, who approved my transfer from the University of Maiduguri in the 2014-2015 section. Mr. Vice Chancellor, a related chapter in my professional life involved a previously proposed and submitted inaugural lecture titled Balancing the Nigerian Education System for Sustainable Development to the University of Maiduguri Senate Publication Committee in 2013-2014 section. However, due to the insecurity that plagued the Northeast region, including Borno State, a date was never assigned. My family and I ultimately made the difficult decision to leave the University of Maiduguri summarily, as we could no longer endure the security threats and growing insecurity which had untold effects on our health, social relations, and productivity. These life experiences shaped a renewed research focus and directly inspired the new title of this lecture, From Wobbling to Thriving Development, the Transformative Power of Adult Learning and Education. Mr. Vice Chancellor, permit me to briefly explain the reason for my insistence on delivering this inaugural lecture following the unfortunate interruption of the earlier attempt. My reasons are threefold. First, it is a debt I feel compelled to pay to academia in general, and more particularly to the adult education and lifelong learning community that has sustained my academic career. Second, it is a direct response to the strong and positive encouragement I received from my immediate and extended family, most especially from my dearest wife, Professor Mary Grace Fajonyomi, who delivered the 238th inaugural lecture of this university on the 27th July 2023. and my younger brother, Professor S.O. Fajonyomi of Lagos State University, who delivered his own inaugural lecture on the 27th September 2012. The two presentations constituted both an inspiration and a challenge. Yet, as the scripture reminds us, there is a time for everything. Morphology, anatomy, and physiology of adult learning and education. Mr. Vice Chancellor, the reminiscence of being a student in the Department of Botany, University of Ibadan, particularly my decision to select botany as a teaching subject while pursuing the Bachelor of Education and Educational Management Botany provides an apt subheading for this section. It underscores the notion that adult learning and education is a living educational system, a field for all seasons, because it is continually alive, flexible, and responsive to the ever-changing needs of individuals, organizations, communities, and societies. Morphologically, it follows that ALE is designed to empower all categories of adults, like presidents of nations and organizations, senators, honorable members, judges, lawyers, accountants, the rich and the poor, out-of-school youths, rural women, and workers in the informal, formal, and non-formal sector by equipping them with essential knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes that complement and supplement formal schooling or school education. Indeed, every workshop, seminar, conferences, such as UC Plus conferences, constitute a form of ALE program, regardless of the participant's demographic profile. It is a clear indication that no one is an emporium of knowledge, and learning is lifelong, and as such, everyone is an adult learner at one or all the time, including everyone under the sound of my voice today. Anatomically, the current core curriculum and minimum academic standard shows that ALE's components are diverse. Program types include literacy and vocational education, community development, social development, and extension services, cooperative management, women education, industrial and labor studies, distance education, leadership, and administration. Physiologically, ALE functions to sustain individual livelihoods, community resilience, and national development. Its processes include needs assessment, learner-centered curriculum design, recognition of prior learning, flexible delivery, quality assurance, pathways into formal certification. Mostly, effective ALE response to labor market signals, public crises, and social needs. On completion of ALE programs, trainees may become adult educators and literacy coordinators, vocational trainers and apprenticeship supervisors, corporate trainer, learning and development specialists, community development officers, curriculum designers, and e-learning specialists, HR and training managers, NGO program officers, M&E, and policy analysts, and entrepreneurs who transfer training into businesses. Mr. Vice Chancellor, globally, adult and learning education is not merely remedial, it is a strategic imperative. It underpins Sustainable Development Goal 4 and intersects directly with SDG 1, SDG 3, SDG 5, SDG 8, and SDG 13. On development, Mr. Vice Chancellor, starting with the basics, to every student of Economics of Adult Education, a course I've been teaching for almost 4 decades. Development is broader and deeper than growth. While growth is a quantitative and structural process depicting increase in size of an object or subject like any, development is a qualitative, unceasing process that continues throughout life and encompasses physical, mental, emotional, and social changes or degree of wellness of a nation, individual, or an entity. Sir, you will agree with me that it is possible for a country to earn more and still largely be poor and unwell. See Table 1. Mr. Vice Chancellor, on wobbling development, it is understood through three interrelated lenses. First, it reflects a skill mismatch, a widening gap between the complex demands of the contemporary global economy and the competencies available within the workforce and communities. Second, it denotes inequity, where development gains routinely circumvent the most vulnerable, creating social fragmentation and fueling instability. 3. Wobbling development arises from a policy fatigue, a recurrent pattern in which ambitious national programs lose momentum, implementation becomes erratic, or initiatives are discontinued altogether because the foundational human capacity remains insufficient to sustain them. Thriving development. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, if wobbling development reflects fragility, inconsistencies, and the inability of a society to convert opportunities into sustainable progress, then thriving development stands as its robust and compelling opposite. Thriving development is neither accidental nor episodic. At its core, it reflects the presence of four interlocking attributes, which, when mutually reinforcing, generate development outcomes that endure across generations. These attributes, human capability, institutional strength, economic diversification, and social cohesion, collectively determine whether the development efforts become permanent fixture or short-lived initiatives that disappear with political circles. See Figure 1. Mr. Vice Chancellor, taken together, these four attributes forms a conceptual architecture of thriving development, which may be illustrated using the pyramid model of thriving development. Figure 1. Adult learning and education as engine of transformation. It is argued that societies do not fail primarily because of the absence of resources or policies, but because of limited human capacity to understand complexity, manage trade-offs, and sustain collective progress. Sir, my submission in this lecture and by the framework is that adult learning and education addresses this deficit directly. This framework is anchored in the triple bottom line TBL model proposed by Ed Kinchin in 1994. The TBL identifies three interdependent factors, which are people or society, economic, planet, or environment. These three factors form a delicate triad. When one factor is prioritized at the expense of the others, development becomes unstable, uneven, and fragile. But when they are harmonized, development becomes inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Mr. Vice Chancellor, as the central proposition of these lectures affirms that adult learning and education is the intervening and multiplicative force transforming wobbling conditions into thriving development, I stand here by the grace of God as the living testimony to his power and influence. Had I changed my course to agricultural economics in 1979, only God knows what part my life might have taken. Sir, by the grace of God and the benevolence of adult learning and education, I have visited 3 continents and 8 countries, including Japan, the UAE, the UK, and Rwanda. Beyond the personal, its broader impact is illustrated mathematically and in diagram in the sequence that follows. Mathematical equations. Mr. Vice Chancellor, two distinct equations are used to illustrate the critical role of adult learning and education as the catalyst for the transformation. One, the Wobbling development equation, expressed as W is equal to U into P, bidirectional arrows into E, bidirectional arrows into N. In this model, the three pillars exist in constant disagreement. Instead of reinforcing one another, they compete for resources and dominance. This friction resonates with the lyrics of Ebenezer Obey, Emi Oba, Iwo Oba, Londa Kitino, as well as Fela. I no go gree for my brother to be hungry, la 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 la. The thriving development equation. This equation demonstrates when Ali is introduced as the primary mediating variable, a strategic transformation occurs from a state of conflict to one of harmonious relationship. This is mathematically expressed as T is equal to I into P plus E plus N and multiplied by ALA. In this state, development is no longer a series of isolated shocks, but a harmonious movement. Adult learning and education acts as the multiplicative mediator, providing the skills and knowledge to align human needs, P, with economic growth and environmental sustainability. That is, by resolving the Iwo-Uba conflict of interest with the integration of Ali, we can now sing Ẹ jẹ́ ká jó lẹ́sọ̀lẹ́sọ̀ jẹ̀lẹ́ńkẹ́, ẹ jẹ́ ká jó lẹ́sọ̀lẹ́sọ̀. Let us move together gently, step by step, a rhythmic, inclusive movement where every citizen is a stakeholder in progress. Dramatic representation. Figure 2. The Vice Chancellor, sir. Figure 2 is provided to accommodate those who may be apprehensive about mathematical illustrations and to sharpen the central thesis of this lecture. Ali is positioned in the figure as a critical intervention point, highlighting its role as the engine that stabilizes development processes and redirects them towards sustainability. My contribution to the body of knowledge in adult learning and education. The discourse is built upon 8 interrelated truths rooted in research, knowledge, and practice. 1. The Vice Chancellor, sir. The discussion so far is suggestive, and that is, Ali must be recognized not as a peripheral social service, but as the stabilizing engine of sustainable and thriving development. This position was first established in my doctoral research, Socio-Economic Determinants of Adult Literacy Performance in Basic Education Classes in Borno State, Nigeria in 1988. It was empirically demonstrated that adult literacy constituted an essential prerequisite for socio-economic transformation and sustainable development in both rural and urban areas, with 22.9% and 23.8% contribution respectively. The argument was further strengthened in adult education for sustainable development livelihoods and building a culture of democracy, Fajonyomi 2013, which articulated adult learning and education as a critical instrument for empowering citizens, sustaining livelihoods, deepening democratic values, and enhancing societal resilience. Literacy as a stabilizer. Mr. Vice Chancellor, for emphasis, most decisive program in the transition of information poverty to development competence remains literacy. My work, most notably the monograph on the power of literacy, strengthening the bond with development initiatives, Fajonyomi 2009, as well as the earlier research on functional literacy interventions, illustrates how literacy acts as a profound stabilizer. Literacy as basic literacy, functional literacy, cultural literacy, environmental literacy, political literacy, or digital literacy equips individuals with the competencies required for meaningful economic and social participation, directly translated into improved health, enhanced productivity, advancement in technology, and stronger social cohesion. In this sense, literacy functions as the primary lever that transforms wobbling social systems plagued by ignorance and misinformation into competent, capable structures of development. Figures 3, 4, 5, and 6 illustrate consequences of illiteracy. Here, illiteracy is shown not merely as the absence of schooling, but as a disabling factor that undermines the effective utilization of development initiatives and socio-economic services. Systems thinking. The Vice Chancellor, sir. One of the recurring explanations for the persistent wobbling condition of many African economic and institutions lies in the failure to appreciate development as a system. Consequently, system analysis has been deliberately applied to interrogate and strengthen organizational processes. For instance, systems thinking was deployed in framing internal and external quality management mechanisms within the URASI system with the aim of enhancing institutional effectiveness, efficiencies, and accountability. Fajonyomi and Ambali 2020. By conceptualizing quality assurance as an interconnected web of inputs, processes, outputs, and feedback loops, rather than a series of isolated compliance exercises, the university system was better positioned to achieve coherence, continuous improvement, and stakeholder competence and confidence. Extending this lens to the broader development conversation, Fajonyomi and others demonstrated that the accelerated attainment of the sustainable development goals depends largely on taking education and sustainable development as an integrated system. Our study argued that lifelong learning, spanning childhood education, youth education, and adult education, must be deliberately harmonized with formal, informal, and non-formal learning pathway. When treated as interdependent components of a single development ecosystem, education becomes powerful catalyst for sustainable transformation. Access, equity, and inclusion. A nation cannot attain thriving development while segments of its population remain marginalized on the basis of age, gender, ability, place of birth, or geographical location. Mr. Vice Chancellor, development that excludes is by its very nature unstable and wobbling. In particular, gender inequity remains a defining challenge in Nigeria. Evidence consistently shows that female children are disproportionately disadvantaged in access to basic education. This unequal and generally low participation of girls at the foundation level inevitably translate into reduced female representation at higher levels of education, and by extension, limited participation in the labor market and political space. No wonder female participation rate in the country's national assemblies is ridiculously 4.1%. Mr. Vice Chancellor, this perfectly mirrors a Yoruba proverb which says, "Amoko erurewo oni eru salewo." Compounding this challenge of gender imbalance is the low absorption capacity of schools, which partly explains Nigeria's persistently high population of out-of-school children, reportedly to be the highest globally, invariably making Nigeria the out-of-school children capital of the world. Similarly, persistent participation gaps between urban and rural schools continue to favor urban centers, thereby deepening social and economic inequalities that fuel wobbling development. In all, adult learning and education programs, in especially open and distance learning, offers remedial opportunities by expanding access, promoting equity, and fostering inclusivity for the underserved population. Quality education. Mr. Vice Chancellor, permit me to observe that the quality of education received by learners or program participants constitutes the basis of meaningful learning and sustainable development. Educational quality is fundamentally shaped by the quality of teachers and facilitators, the relevance of curriculum and instructional practices, the availability and suitability of instructional materials, the conduciveness of the learning environment, and funding. The Vice Chancellor, sir. Beyond physical learning conditions, the effectiveness of teaching is further shaped by the language of instruction. Permit me to draw attention to evidence from a quasi-experimental study conducted in 1993, which showed that Nigerian adults taught through a mix of English L2 and Hausa L1 performed better than those taught in English only and Hausa only. These findings affirm the educational value of blending English with learners' first languages, whether Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba, to enhance understanding and participation. Indeed, certain concepts expressed in English are more clearly and quickly explained through learners' immediate language environment. For instance, a teacher in a reader will have something like as white as snow. Somebody who is in the north, who has never seen a snow, how will he know, how can he compare it with its whiteness? But instead, it is expected for a teacher to say, "O fufu bi egbon owu." Fufu bi egbon owu, everybody has seen owu before. And that is expected that the students or learners will be able to relate with what they have in their environment. In this light, the recent policy to discourage the use of first languages, even alongside English, at all levels of instruction, deserve careful reconsideration. However, before any national adoption, a comprehensive evidence-based nationwide investigation remains imperative. Early strategy for conflict prevention. Mr. Vice Chancellor, it is incontrovertible that conflicts constitute one of the most persistent barriers to thriving and sustainable development, particularly in fragile society like ours. We have seen violent conflicts disrupting learning systems, destroying livelihoods, weakening social trust, and undermining institutional stability. Within this context, early is recognized as a critical intervention for conflict prevention and the promotion of safe learning environment, especially within formal and non-formal education spaces. In a practical application, Akali, Ambali, and Fajonyomi 2024 highlighted the role of scheme organizers in embedding safety and conflict sensitivity into program design and implementation. We advised introduction of non-formal self-defense and safety training, which equip learners or students with practical skills to recognize threats, avoid danger, and protect themselves physically and mentally. I think, Mr. Vice Chancellor, it is time to introduce karate or kung fu into our training programs at all levels. Leadership for Transformation. The Vice Chancellor, sir, leadership in institutions, organizations, and nations alike indubitably constitutes the defining force and that either stabilizes system or propels them into persistent administrative uncertainty. For example, on empirically integrating universities' leadership quality as well as leadership selection and recruitment procedures in Nigeria, I find out that the processes are frequently enmeshed in intrigues, maneuverings, and contested successions with emphasis on impressive curricula, overshadowing the qualitative attributes that sustain effective governance like ethical judgment, emotional intelligence, personal integrity, and capacity to mobilize collective personal integrity and the capacity to mobilize collective purpose. Also, it was revealed that when leadership is narrowly construed as administrative competence, governance becomes transactional, while authority loses its moral legitimacy and institutional coherence begins to erode. However, subsequent work on dynamic leadership in Nigerian universities affirmed that institutions regain stability and direction when leadership is anchored in shared values, adaptability, inclusiveness, and participatory decision-making, where authorities is exercised as stewardship rather than dominance or lording over. Research, monitoring, and evaluation. No nation, and indeed no individual, can survive or sustain thriving development without a robust, evidence-based research culture and strong inbuilt monitoring and evaluation mechanism. Research in its various forms is fundamentally expected to generate knowledge that enhances understanding of what works, why it works, for whom it works, and under what conditions, thereby fostering stable and thriving development. However, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, my experience and empirical observations reveal that the persistent paucity of credible data has rendered these interrelated processes increasingly difficult, time-consuming, and costly. Even more troubling is that attempts to rely on the limited available data often generate outcomes that are unequal, misaligned with the problems at hand, and in many cases counterproductive. Rather than addressing core developmental challenges, such outcomes tend to produce policy inconsistencies and program inefficiencies that contribute to wobbling development. This scenario may explain why our country appears to be making several moves with little significant progress to show. Contribution to university development. The Vice Chancellor, sir, my career in academia is inseparable from my service to two great institutions, the University of Maiduguri, UNIMAID, and the University of Ilorin, UNILORIN. My contributions span decades, moving from classroom to the highest echelons of institutional governance, always driven by the mandate to enhance academic quality and expand educational access, while upholding the core principle of accountability paired with responsibility. My service at the University of Maiduguri for 31 years was marked by dedicated teaching, earning me awards from students, bodies at departmental and faculty levels, alongside official university recognition like the Commendation for Industry given by University of Maiduguri Council in 1991. Beyond the classroom, I contributed significantly to academic policy and university governance for over 3 decades. Head of department, as you must have heard, 1992 to 1995, Dean Faculty of Education 2004 to 2008. In each section, an annual faculty week was celebrated, involving international annual conference, culminating in the publication of the faculty book of readings, commissioning of at least a project and an annual get-together with annual awards to deserving stakeholders within the universities. We have evidences, figures 7, 8, 9, and 10. Member, University Senate. I expect that one is not just a member, but one must have to contribute. In one of the sessions, I sponsored a bill through the faculty that led to the efficient computation of graduating student results, leading to a significant reduction in the number of students graduating with top class and past degrees. Member, University Government Council 2009 to 2013. Serving on the council was the pinnacle of my service at UNIMED. Working alongside Dr. Wale Babalakin and Professor Maladaura. Under this administration, external and internal members learn to serve not for primordial purpose of making money, scrabbling for contracts or gaining undue influence, but sacrificially for the growth of the university. Founder and editor of Continuing Education and Extension Quarterly. At University of Ilorin, I've been a director in Ilorin Center for Open and Distance Learning 2014 to 2017. Ilorin Senate have been there 2014 up to date. Chairman, Faculty of Education Research Committee 2018 to 2020. Member, Mock Accreditation Team 2018 to 2020. Director, Institute of Education, August 2020 to March 2021. Managing Editor, Ilorin Journal of Lifelong Education 2017 to 2019. Reviewer to local and international journals, including Scopus listed International Journal of Lifelong Education. Contribution to professional, community, and religious organizations. I have been a bona fide member of the Nigerian National Council for Adult Education since 1987. Beyond, I'm presently a member of the Council's think tank group, and I'm also on the NSCAE Board of Trustees. As an extension of my commitment to community development, I serve on the Board of Trustees of the Kebbi Community Development Support Initiative in Kebbi State. In the religious sphere, I was an executive member of the Chapel of Grace, University of Maiduguri for years, and presently on the executive committee of the Chapel of the Light, University of Ilorin. Contribution to development and human capital formation. Examined or supervised 46 masters and 16 doctoral students. Of the 16 PhD holders, 8 are presently professors. Member and or chairman of accreditation, resource for education and facilitation panel to 3 colleges of education and 8 universities from 2005 to 2022. I have assessed 35 candidates and still counting for promotion to professorial position in 14 Nigerian universities offering adult education. Conclusion. Mr. Vice Chancellor, this lecture has shown that Nigeria's persistent development instability termed wobbling development is neither inevitable nor insurmountable. It stems from human capability, deficits, weak institutional continuity, policy inconsistency, inequitable access to education, and limited community empowerment. However, it affirms that adult learning and education provides a transformative opportunity to convert a fragile into resilient and sustainable economy and polity. Early equips individuals, institutions, and society with adaptive knowledge, critical thinking, social responsibility, and all-season competencies. In other words, it is underscored that no nation can rise above the quality of learning available to its adults. That is, Nigerians can shift from wobbling to thriving development only by making adult learning and education a well-resourced national priority, professionally recognized, and systematically integrated into the planning and policy development. Again, the desired future is possible. It has to be built on a capable, empowered adult education. Recommendations. Nigeria's educational governance framework should be reconfigured based on lifelong learning principles. Thus, the Federal Ministry of Education should be renamed the Federal Ministry of Lifelong Education to reflect systemic collaborations and institutional linkages. Also, policy formulation and implementation should be decentralized through specialized parallel commissions. At the tertiary level, the regulatory functions of NUC, SCCE, and MBTE should be streamlined into former Higher Education Commission, complemented by an Adult Higher Education Commission. At the lower levels, corresponding structures should exist such that alongside a secondary education commission, there is an adult and continuing education commission. Furthermore, given the limited universality of UBEC, the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education should be retained but strategically restructured. Each ALIS structure shall coordinate programs across NDAs, NGOs, and private sector providers in operation at each level. National Council of Education should be strengthened and expanded. 3. Government commitment to adult and adult learning and education should prioritize quality improvement through the professionalization of practice. Adequate funding of ALIS system should be prioritized for its effect on quality, efficiency, equity, and responsiveness. Relationship between formal schooling and ALIS system should be practical, functional, and mutually reinforcing. Program contents at equivalent levels should be aligned and benchmarked to ensure comparability and equivalence. 6. A well-resourced learning center should be established across the local government areas to support lifelong learning and community development. 7. Public-private partnerships should be strategically strengthened. 8. Strong monitoring, evaluation, and research mechanism should be embedded with all adult learning and education programs. Acknowledgements. It is apposite for me to end this inaugural lecture with some acknowledgements. First and foremost, I wish to express my profound gratitude to Almighty God, whose ways are unfathomable, and who has been my present help in times of trouble, for making this day a reality. My gratitude goes to past Vice Chancellor of this university, especially Professor Abdulganiyu Ambali OON, who allowed my transfer of service to the university and appointed me as the Director of Open and Distance Learning, and Professor S.A. Abdulkarim, who appointed me as the Director of the Institute of Education. Let me also sincerely appreciate the present Vice Chancellor, Professor Wab Ayodele SAN, for his friendly disposition to me and for the approval given to present this lecture. Other members of his visionary administration, including the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor A. Fawale, Taibat Odola Bakare, and M.A. Etudai, the Registrar, Mr. M.A. Alfanla, the University Librarian, Professor K.T. Omopupa, and the Bossa, Mr. Abiodun Lawal, are also recognized. Members of the University Governing Council are equally appreciated, especially the Chairman, Surveyor Abiodun J. Aluko, FCIML. Additionally, I acknowledge the University Library and Publication Committee under the leadership of Professor A.O. Issa for reviewing and suggesting ways to improve on the quality of this lecture. I'm deeply thankful to my late parents, Pa Philip Olagoju and Mama Teresa Bosede Fajonyomi. My heartfelt appreciation extends to my sibling, and their families, here represented by Deaconess Mrs. Oluremi and Honorable Tunde Agbola. I also extend my warm thanks to my in-laws, the Deckers, represented by Mrs. Josephine A. Amadu and Mr. Christopher Decker. Their collective and individual support at different stages of my life has been invaluable. As the Yoruba proverb says, èèyàn kì í gbàgbé orísun rẹ̀, one should never forget one's root. I salute the management and staff of the University of Maiduguri, especially Professor J.D. Amin, a visionary, transformative, and incorruptible Vice-Chancellor, whose unwavering support enabled the faculty to emerge as a recognized center of excellence. I acknowledge Dr. Wale Babalakin as well. I say a sincere thank you to my colleagues in the Department of Continuing Education and Extension Services, Department of Adult Education and Community Services, Bayero University, Kano, and Department of Adult Education and Extension Services of the Usmanu Danfodio University, particularly the Vice Chancellor, Professor Garba. Turning to the University of Ibadan, I remain especially indebted to the late Dr. S.D. Akango and the late Professor J.T. Okedara, my supervisors for the master dissertation and PhD thesis, respectively. Professor Okedara, gesture of hosting me for dinner upon graduation and prayerfully commissioning me into the academic world as a dedicated and faithful student remains an unforgettable experience. I'm profoundly grateful to the Emeritus Professor Michael Omolawa. As the Dean of the Faculty of Education, University of Ibadan, approved my transfer from the Department of Educational Management to the Department of Adult Education. Special recognition goes to Professor Dele Brahman, Depo Akintayo, Professor Yemi and Deborah Eguyomi for their invaluable support to my family and me over the years. My sincere greetings to the past Dean of the Faculty of Education on assumption of duty in 2014 and the present Professor O.L. Olaiton. Also worthy of recognition are my colleagues in the Department of Adult and Primary Education. Foremost is Professor Taiwo T. Ambali, humility personified, for her encouragement and support in various ways. Others are Professor O.O. Okoji, the Head of Department, current, Doctors Olabisi Adedigba, Eniolake Olalani, Rachel O. Agari, O.A. Olawuni, R. Abdulwahab, S.T. Kayode, A.O. Solajeru, A. Abdullahi, Mrs. Y. Kuranga, and T. Ahmed. Mesdamis, R.M.O. Mohammed, and Salmat Isa. The non-academic staff include Mesdamis Amina Sai Mohammed, Sadat A. Ayuba, Dokas F. Iwalaye, and Funke E. Abiola are also appreciated for their supportive role. Furthermore, Professor H. O. Owolabi deserves my special acknowledgement for his diligence and administrative attentiveness in growing my fitness into learning academic culture. I also like to thank my professional colleagues in NNCA, especially Professor Fatima Umar and Labayo Kolawole Kasim. I recognize all members of the 1974 set of St. Charles Grammar School, Osogbo, represented by Professor Latif Adeleke, and my current chairman Abayomi also is here. I wish to thank the set 1977 set at DDTC Oyekiti for their social support. Residents of the Ilorin DRA staff quarters, Fate Road, Ilorin, are acknowledged for their good laboriousness. Besides, I very much thank my friends, too numerous to mention, but I would like to single out the following: Pastor Raphael Adoide, Deacon Shegun Dairo, Professor Afolabi Popola, Professor Abdulgani Ayodele Salawu, Stephen O. Olubadewo, Dr. Gbadebo Oyelekan. Even though called to glory, I cannot but appreciate a bosom friend and a long-serving University of Maiduguri librarian, Mr. James Abayomi Agaja. A reliable, irreplaceable, and lovely friend. Missing him is an understatement. I also wish to acknowledge Doctors Babagida Ladan, Awalu Alilu, and Usman A. Idris. Doctors Mutala Yusuf and Dr. Olorubebe, Kwara State Commissioner for Education and Human Capital Development, are acknowledged for being there when they are needed. To Professor A. Omotesho and others, I say thank you. I solemnly wish to acknowledge members of the Chapel of Grace, University of Maiduguri, members of the CAC Chapel of Testimony, Sokoto, members of the Chapel of the Light, University of Ilorin, especially the chaplains, including Reverend Eli Alasan, chaplain in charge, Reverend Professor C.O. Ogukule, Reverend D.O.J.O. Osaji, and Reverend Dr. F.M. Babajide as well. I appreciate Professor A.B.O. and Mommy Funlayo Omotosho all for their prayers and love. Dr. Pastor and Dr. David Odaibo, a quiet couple of lost friars, are especially appreciated. Members of the St. Joseph Catholic Church in Ekiti are also recognized. Most especially, I appreciate my Lord Bishop of Ekiti Diocese, Most Reverend Felix Ajakaye, for his truthfulness in his work for God and our Lord Jesus Christ. My families and relatives, the Agbolas, Ajakayes, Akiwimis, and Fajonyomis are very sincerely appreciated. My in-laws by marriage to my children, including Alawodes, Abdul Gandus, and Akiemis, are also recognized. What's more, I wish to express my utmost gratitude to octogenarians and nonagenarians whose lives have been a blessing to my life, especially Emeritus Professor and Mamati O. Olokure, Professor and Mrs. B. O. Ogubameru, Professor F. O. Adeniji, Professor F. C. Keru, Uncle Peter Fajonyomi, Baba Ganga, Professor Y. M. Pakuli, Reverend Professor A. M. Okori, Professor S. K. Odaibo, Baba Engineer Oweye, Baba Dr. Awopetu, and Baba P. Fatogo. My children, especially Dr. Efeoluwa Dapo, Mr. Oluwafemi, Mrs. Oluwafumi Layo, and Mr. Bumi Fajonyomi, and their families are profusely thanked for working to granting my wife and I peace at our old age. Especially to the grandchildren, Temitope Oluwa, Anu Oluwa, Ayodele, Ayomiku, Oluwadarasimi, and Iremide, Divine and Deborah, I say I love you all. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, it is incontestable that I'm blessed with a supportive and God-fearing wife of over 43 years. Professor Mary Grace Fajonyomi. I must acknowledge with deep gratitude that our life mirrors the noble character celebrated in Proverbs 31:10-31. She is far more precious than rubies, industrious, wise, compassionate, and steadfast. Through tireless labor, prudent stewardship, and unwavering faith, she has brought honor to our home and strength to my calling. Our counsel is gracious, her hands generous to the needy, and her fear of the Lord evident in all she does. Truly, our works praise her, and I stand here today by the grace of God, sustained by her enduring love and sacrifice. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, tomorrow marks her birthday. Perhaps, can I crave the indulgence of the Mr. Vice Chancellor for the audience to join me in singing this song, Happy Birthday to her. Perhaps while standing, just give me that honor and stand up and let's sing together. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Thank you. I'm very grateful. Since we do not say goodbye at the University of Ilorin, let me say, see you again by the special grace of God in 2027 at my valedictory lecture. Again, I thank you all for listening, and may God grant you journey mercies to your different destinations. Thank you.
You may have your seats, please. The inaugural lecturer has given us a meal, and I believe we are all educated. Customary for us to salute even those he had mentioned before. We'd like to start with our member of council, Malam Abdurrashid Dauda Gidado. Thank you for coming. Next is the wife of our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Hassanat Taiwo Ambali. Thank you for coming. The Honorable Commissioner for Education and Human Capital, Dr. Lawal Lori Olorun Bebe. Thank you. Dr. Funsho Abdulrazak and Honorable Justice Fatima Abdulrazak. Welcome. His Lordship Bishop Felix Ajakaye, the Catholic Bishop of Ekiti Diocese. Thank you very much. He's online. The chaplains of the Chapel of the Light. Reverend Eli Al-Hassan, chaplain in charge. Reverend Professor C.O. Gukonle, Reverend Dr. J.O. Osaji, and Reverend F.M. Babajide. You're welcome. We would also like to recognize the Nigerian National Council for Adult Education,
represented by Professors Fatima Umar and Labayo Kolawole Kazim. You're welcome. We have a long list of past deans of the Faculty of Education. Professor A.S. Olorundare, Professor A.A. Adegoke, Professor N.B. Oyedeji, Professor M.F. Salman, Professor Felicia A.O. Olashainde Williams, Professor M.O. Yusuf, Professor L.A. Yaya. I can see you in the audience. You are all welcome. Thank you very much. The inaugural lecturer has listed a group of people called benefactors. Pastor Raphael Adoide, Abdulgani Ayodele Salau, Dr. Badebo Oyelekan Egbon, Professor ABO and Auntie Fumilayo Omotosho. These are benefactors. Thank you for coming. There are in-laws and there are in-laws. These are direct in-laws. Direct in-laws, retired nurse Josephine Amadu. Thank you, Ma, for coming. I saw Mama there, I know her too. And then Christopher Decker, our in-law. Thank you very much. Our other in-laws by marriage, the Alawades. Thank you. The Abdugandus. Thank you. And the Akiyamis. Thank you very much for coming. Then there's a group of people who also, I would like to mention the title, not because it's something new, but it's something we all knew, but it's important to mention them. They are called Octa and Nonagenarians. These are the ancients. These are our ancients. Professor and Mamatio Olowokure, thank you. Professor and Mrs. B.O. Ogunbameru, thank you. Professor F.O. Adeniji, Professor F.C. Karil, Uncle Peter Fajonyomi, Baba Aganga, Professor Y.M. Fakunle, Reverend Professor A.M. Awopetu, Baba P. Fatogu, Baba Dr. Ogunjemilua, Professor N.A. Omolowa. And the list continues. Professor and Mama S.B. Agaja, Professor Esther Omoshewo, Professor Yemi and Professor Adeton Idowu, Professor and Mama Odaibo, thank you for coming. The children of the inaugural lecturer, thank you for supporting and allowing Daddy to work. Dr. Ifeoluwa Dapo, Mr. Oluwafemi, Mrs. Oluwafunmilayo, and Mr. Boni Fajonyomi. Thank you for allowing him to work. And to the grandchildren that have shown him so much love and he loves so much, Temitope Oluwa, Anu Oluwa, Ayodele, Ayomikuha, Oluwa Darasini, Yeremide Rohi, Divine, and Deborah. And to the biggest of all, who has been a blessing, supportive, counselor, God-fearing, more precious than rubies, industrious, wise, compassionate, and steadfast in the love, Professor Mrs. Grace Fajonyomi. Please stand up for a record. Please stand up and face the audience. Thank you very much, Mama. There she is. Professor, the wife of the inaugural lecturer. Thank you.
Shall we rise, ladies and gentlemen, for the university anthem? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for being a part of history. Thank you for joining us for the 297th in the series of inaugural lectures of this university. Please, you kindly remain where you are for the Vice Chancellor's procession to return the reverse order.